Hi everyone, welcome to my channel where I discuss all things human design. On today's episode, I'm going to be sharing all about conditioning and how it pertains to the generator human design type. I'll be sharing more on the other energy types in the next coming videos, so make sure to subscribe so you're notified when those come out, especially for manifesting generators, where I recommend that you check out this video as well as my upcoming manifestor video all about conditioning. And if you're new here and you're not sure yet what human design is or what your own human design chart is, make sure to check the description box below where I've linked several resources where you can learn all about human design. As always, the goal of this channel is to provide you with some real life examples so you can learn about human design and how it pertains to our everyday life. It is meant to be supplemental, it's meant to be fun, and those that have followed for a long time already know this is totally unscripted. I have a wide open throat, a tendency to tangent, but I'm super excited to share about this topic, especially as a generator myself. Now, with that, the main goal for this video is to not only educate you on how conditioning appears in our everyday life, but also to give you some different ways of thinking and navigating your conditioning to get to ultimately your alignment, or in human design terms, your signature. As generator energy, our strategy is to respond. This is how we get to our signature. We respond to what's in front of us and how we feel about it. Our signature is satisfaction. So before I even dive into what conditionings that generators actually experience in this lifetime, I want to talk a little bit about our strategy to respond and how to navigate that. And then I want to talk about satisfaction and what that actually means. And then I promise I'll give you 5 different areas where we may be susceptible to conditioning based on our real life experience. With that, our strategy is to respond, which can be quite simple as well as quite confusing. We literally are here to just respond to what's in front of us. Everyone tells us just respond, or how do you respond to that? However, a lot of times the responses or the questions that come up in our lives are open-ended, and we're not great with the open-endedness of a decision, which I'll get more into a little bit later on, I promise. But what does it mean to respond? A lot of times, not pertaining to human design, we hear society tells us to listen to your gut. Now, this is actually especially true for generator energy. Not all of us are meant to listen to our gut, but those that are generator energy, meaning manifesting generators as well as pure generators, we have a defined sacral. That's what makes us part of the generator energy type. And having this definition is literally where we feel that response. And so I'm going to give you a couple of examples so you can really understand what I mean with the response. Let's say you are given the opportunity to go for your favorite food. You're going to go out and you're going to eat at your favorite restaurant. The response will feel like a yes. You will feel excited. You will feel energized by that opportunity. Now, let's say you are asked by your boss at work to come in on the weekend. You might feel a little bit of this resistance that you don't really want to go into the office on the weekend, but there's this big conditioning around what if you say no, what will happen next? And I'm going to talk about that as part of my 5 examples around conditioning for generators. But that resistance, that's when we should be saying no to something versus when we should be saying yes to something. That's how our response works. It literally works in the way of, it feels like a yes, I'm super excited, versus I'm not really sure, there's a bit of resistance. Now, I always remind generator energy that if there is a bit of resistance, if there's a maybe with whatever you're being asked to do or asked to respond to, say no. The universe always has a way of bringing back opportunities to us for us to say yes if we were meant to say yes, but don't compromise. If it's not an absolute yes, then it's probably a no, and it's okay to say no. So that is our response. And satisfaction is what the generator energy feels when they are in alignment. And this is a little bit of a silly example that I like to use, but for me, the best example I can give is when there's a clear start and finish. We feel satisfied. So it could be building IKEA furniture. It could be doing math homework over doing open-ended written homework. These 2 things have very clear start and finish. And so Oftentimes, generator energies, they enjoy having a to-do list. They enjoy having a clear start and finish, and projects that are open-ended are a little bit more cumbersome for the generator energy to actually attain or get motivated by or have that response. So this leads me right into the different conditionings that I'm going to be sharing today, because generator energy have energy to power everyone else. We are the only human design type that really create our own energy. Manifestors do create their own energy through their throat, but it's not necessarily as consistent, and I'll speak about that more in the manifestor video. But generators, they literally create their energy by doing what they love, and they give others energy by literally the others having that undefined sacral magnifying out your energy. So this is why oftentimes generators will feel a little bit tired sometimes, depending on their work environment. They might feel a little bit exhausted at the end of the day, like they need to be on their own to recharge. And when you're doing what you love, you might find as a generator energy that you have unlimited energy to go and do it, that you could sit for 10 hours a day and work consistently. And this is often times why we have been dubbed the worker bees, or we are sort of the army soldiers. These are different ways of explaining the generator human design type, because we are just given tasks. We're good at being given tasks. We're good at being given direction and just going with it. And that's fine. However, we need to be responding based on what's aligned for us and not putting others before ourselves, which is the first conditioning I want to talk about when it comes to generators, is putting others before ourselves. A lot of times we feel like that's what we should do because we fear the what if. As I spoke about a little bit earlier on, oftentimes we worry about, well, what if I say no? What if I tell my boss I don't want to work on the weekend? What if I don't want to help my friend move their apartment? It's all about wondering what if, and I try to remind generators that what if is an open-ended question, and it's not meant for us to respond to because it's open-ended. We're here for the yes and the no. And as humans, we always overcomplicate things, but it doesn't need to be that complicated. You just have to think about, do you want to work on the weekend? Do you want to help your friend move? It's okay not to want to do those things, and be honest about it, because when you put yourself first, when you're showing up for yourself, you're able to 10x how much you're able to show up for others. And that is something that we are learning that is not necessarily innate as a generator type. It takes a lot for us to realize that the more we focus on ourselves, the more we're able to show up even better for those around us. Number 2 is that being busy means that you're productive, means that you're successful. And again, society has kind of made us feel like if we are busy, or we're always running around doing things, or we have a long task list and we're crossing everything off, while it is very satisfying to cross off different tasks, being busy just for the sake of being busy is not aligned. And this is a conditioning pattern that generators have. And it is something that definitely came out during the pandemic, when all of a sudden, a lot of us that were working from home or had to work from home realized we had more time on our hands. And for a lot of generators, this was a struggle because it was the first time that they had more time and they didn't know how to fill it. They didn't know how to just sit with all this extra time. And this is something we can learn a lot about from projectors, and I'll speak about projectors in an upcoming video with projectors and conditioning. But it's very important that just being busy doesn't mean you're going to get to that aligned state or that signature of satisfaction. Being busy does not mean you're more productive or that you're better. It just means that you are filling your time and not necessarily in an aligned way. The third thing that I want to talk about when it comes to conditioning is that what if I mentioned earlier. So we're always thinking about the what if in a scenario, and oftentimes this causes us as generators to overcommit, to overpromise, and then all of a sudden we burn out. Depending on how our charts are set up, we just feel our not self theme. We get frustrated because we agreed to something that was not an absolute yes, and we did that because we feared what if we didn't. So really important to focus on being clear about, does this feel like my favorite food? And that's a yes. I love chocolate cake. It feels like chocolate cake. My initial response is a yes, versus you're not sure. If you're not sure, as I mentioned before, just simply say no. Don't worry about the feelings or the thoughts of what others might think, because the more you get true to yourself and you stick up for yourself, you put yourself first, the more you're going to become aligned and you're going to get really clear on that response strategy. And of course, ultimately, that leads to satisfaction. The fourth area I want to talk about is when we don't trust our own strategy to respond, because society has all these different ways of decision making and we read into it and we get influenced by the other different human design types and how they make decisions. We all make decisions in different ways, and I actually made a whole video all about decision making, which I will link below. But it's really important not to compare yourself to others and how they might be making decisions, because as a generator, you are unique in this strategy of responding. Just like you are unique in the not self theme of feeling frustration, just like you are unique in that feeling of satisfaction. The other human design types are completely different. And if you're curious about them, linked below, I've got videos going over each of the different human design types where I already review the strategy, the not self theme, and the signature of each of the human design types. Now, the fifth area I want to talk about when it comes to conditioning is that struggle, the struggle with decision making, feeling that open-endedness and feeling like you're in this loop of not being sure. It kind of is similar to the fourth thing that I mentioned where we don't trust our response strategy. But if you're ever feeling like you're not sure when it comes to decision making, or you have an open-ended question that you're faced with, I highly recommend taking out a notebook and making a pro and con list and really looking at what are the yeses to that decision, what are the no's to that decision. And if you're not sure, you can always invite a projector friend to provide advice. Projectors are actually great with open-ended decision making, and you can always bring in or call in your projector friends to help you when you are making a decision. Again, the conditioning for each human design type is a little bit different across each one of the types. And for generators, our biggest conditioning is agreeing to things, taking on too much, giving our energy to others, putting others before us, making ourselves small and feeling like we can't take the lead on something, and really giving our energy and power to others. And we absolutely do not need to do that. So I hope this video was informative for you, that you learned something, that you have a better understanding now of how to respond and what it is like when you don't necessarily, like, you dive into that conditioning, that feeling of not self, which is frustration. I guess that's another tip I want to add before I close out, is that when you're feeling frustrated, that's the biggest indicator that you are being conditioned by something, that you agreed to something that was not a yes. So really questioning that and digging into where that frustration is coming from, so that you don't overcommit and get yourself into those scenarios where you ultimately burn out. Eventually, you'll get to satisfaction, and that is the goal for the generator human design type. I hope this was helpful. I know it was a bit all over the place. You guys know I do these completely unscripted. I'm really excited for my human design channel and what I have planned for this year. So make sure to subscribe. And of course, if you have any questions, feedback, suggestions, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, make sure to leave a comment in the comments below. Thank you.